imperative, because as some of us learned, as we read emails, and we don't know what's going on in Grant County government, and that's not right. We are taxpayers. We just paid our property taxes. For what? I mean, like, help us as taxpayers. And I know there's been in some situations, and I haven't spoken until tonight, and as I'm standing here and listening to this dialogue, confusion, it reinforces. We've got the cart before the horse. We've got different things happening.
We're live. Just trying to make sure we can sign on.
Different things happening that where is the plan? So I appreciate you allowing me to speak. I appreciate you looking at it. I think it really, out of fairness to the new commissioners, there needs to be a timeout. And a plan needs to be developed. And then proceed, if that's what the decision is.
And you understand that that's totally under the control of the current commissioners.
I understand that.
Yeah. I mean,
And I would say the taxpayers have spoken. And I hope that as men, they're strong enough to say, okay, let's turn it over to the new commissioners to come in. Don't let their egos get in the way and interfere with what taxpayers want instead of what they want.
well, for the record, I want to note that the Drainage Board asked for a moratorium sometime back, and the Area Planning Commission has asked for a moratorium on a couple different occasions. I think they share the same concerns in which you've spoken to this evening. I mean, I think it's widespread. We can only hope that, the current commissioners take some consideration of that.
Because the other thing I learned as we worked the polls, the public does not know. The public does not understand. We've just scratched the surface, in my opinion, of educating people. The taxpayer don't know. And as we were working the polls and we were talking to taxpayers, voters, as they were going in to vote, they so much appreciated knowing, having a little more information. We have got to do a better job of educating Grant County residents. And I think some of us were trying. Because, and again, I would say our Grant County government has not thoroughly educated and informed Grant County residents. And there's people that have no idea what the potential is. We've become educated and we know what the potential is. And I think for Grant County residents to feel like they're heard and that it makes a difference, there's gotta be a timeout. So.
Thank you.
I'd like to address a few things here. One of which is, how did we get here? Well, we kept hearing that the application is in the ordinance. And so we don't need to do an application. And we feel that what's in the solar ordinance is woefully inadequate as far as an application is concerned, and that the APC put together a committee to develop one. And that we did not want to get any solar companies trying to rush in with an application made out according to the solar ordinance. That we needed to have an actual application. One that actually looks into a few things that might not be seen otherwise, like, who is this company? Who owns it? Who's the board of directors? Is it publicly or privately held? Are these people in litigation over other solar farms? Have they failed to complete other solar farms? Have these people declared bankruptcy before? We need to know a lot about who we're going to do business with. These are out-of-state companies. These aren't people in our town here we know who've run successful businesses. So we need to do our research, and we need to be careful. And we need to have an application that makes it clear what we expect. Now, that's how we got here right now, because we don't want to get blindsided. We want to have a good application. And we do have a lot of things going on. We have the comprehensive plan going on, which will be starting soon. And we have to make some changes with the existing solar ordinance that the commissioners signed because it's an illegal ordinance. It's been reviewed and it's got problems. So,
Can I speak to that?
yes.
With you? Back to my original thought, actually. There is an ordinance that, we have an ordinance that was adopted on behalf of the people. It was rejected outright by our commissioners. They had an ordinance that had been developed by a group of people. I think Ryan was a part of that group, along with county council representatives, attorneys, solar companies. They sit for some of that. Anyway,
The amendments that we made were rejected.
yeah.
They did not get into the ordinance. No, I wasn't on that
He
committee.
wasn't on the original committee.
Incorrect.
Yeah, so in any case, there were two ordinances, one that we submitted and one that had been developed otherwise for the commissioners to consider. They rejected the one that we put out, and they have adopted at this point an ordinance. And is it correct within that ordinance, the application process is in that, it's to be embedded in the ordinance that has been passed?
Yes,
Okay,
that was the intention.
so before we can start dealing, in my opinion, with a solar application, we don't have authority. We could adopt anything we wanted to, and so, it's already there. We need the amendment process first to get that removed, hopefully, and put back into our hands. And at that point, then we would be free to be doing what we are considering doing now. I understand it'd be nice that when this moratorium is lifted, that we're ready to go. We probably need to get the amendment thing done first, or we're sunk. They lift the moratorium, they don't have to listen to anything that we develop. They've already got it embedded. The first job that we've got to do is we've got to amend, have the opportunity to sit with those folks and hopefully be able to amend what they have already adopted. Any work that we do that is outside of the ordinance that they have adopted is futile.
I don't see it that way. I see a lot of
Okay,
these
that's right.
things
I
go,
do.
no matter whose ordinance is adopted, a lot of these things in the application are the APC responsibility to develop.
I'm still confused, Ryan, by the fact that, if it is a fact, that the Area Planning Commission can go into a resolution for amendments that has a 6-month period of time for us to develop those amendments. But the commissioners, the fact that they filed a resolution for an amendment doesn't put the same hurdle, so to speak, on receiving applications that the APC's resolution would.
The drainage board is simply, here's how it reads.
Does that make sense? Is that a logical question? I don't understand where the separation is. Go
The
ahead.
drainage board doesn't put forth the law. It has to come through you. So what they're doing is they are basically asking the legislative body to present to us.
So do we have to file a resolution to honor that amendment that the Drainage Board is putting for us?
Yeah.
Can we say, as the APC, we've got a resolution presented by the Drainage Board, we are not taking applications until we get this resolved?
Yeah.
Do we have to file a resolution
I'll
to,
find it, but, I mean, Indiana Code 36-7-4-602. Planning Commission may initiate the proposal under the advisory planning law or the area planning law. Any participating legislative body may also initiate the proposal and require the Planning Commission to prepare it. So Drainage Board can't do it. Either a legislative body or the area planning commission has to initiate the proposal. So I think what the Drainage Board is doing is trying to go to the commissioners to get a legislative body to propose to us. If that
I don't know, but that still doesn't, I'm not satisfied with understanding if that happens, if the commissioners, as a legislative body, file a resolution to consider the amendment of the setback for a county ditch or, that a solar company can still roll in an application with that being uncertain as to what the ordinance is going to read?
Like any building law in the state of Indiana, it is what is law the day you put the development on the desk. I apply for a permit, I have to hold true to what is law today. We change it tomorrow.
That makes sense.
Doesn't affect me.
Well, okay, there's two ways that amendments can come. They can come through the legislative body, commissioners, town boards, or they can come through the area plan commission and initiate amendments. And there's a different schedule for each way that it goes.
You say there was three things? Town boards can do this?
Town boards are a legislative body, just like the
Any
commission.
legislative body, we're not just talking about
Yes,
the county.
any legislative body can bring
You
an
agree.
amendment. And,
So,
and the APC can do amendments. And as you've seen before, we've had multiple ordinances going at the same time. And the commissioners never rejected draft 7. They amended it with draft 4, the most unusual move.
same thing.
But they have one choice they can do according to the state code. They can adopt, they can amend, or they can reject. They can't do 2 or 3. There you have a problem with, okay, they amended 7 with 4. What happened to 7? 7 wasn't dealt with.
Some of these folks don't know the difference between 4 and 7.
Right.
7 is the one that was developed by the people
Yes.
and is the one that, we're
Has
dealing with
protection.
semantics here, whether or not it was rejected or whether it was amended or whatever. But in any case, the one developed by the people that was adopted by the APC and submitted to the commissioners was disregarded and replaced with their own. Okay, so that's where we are. So we're talking about 4, we're talking about theirs. You're talking about 7, you're talking about the one developed by the people.
Right.
Just so everybody knows, we throw numbers around.
But there were 2 separate ordinances,
Yes,
totally unalike,
right,
that were in motion at the same time.
right.
And then to even confuse it a little more is the one that is posted on the Grant County website says 7, ordinance number 7.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan can explain that.
Which was an ordinance when it was adopted.
So if you go to look at
Given number
that,
7.
it's extremely confusing, so.
But it was draft 7 when it was created. And draft 4 was created by the commissioners and their team.
Would it not be?
Linda.
Hi.
Would it not be proper for us to consider the amendment process and begin trying to discuss that with the commissioners? And then at the same time, we could start to work on this.
Yeah, I don't,
But with the
I don't think
amendment,
there's any doubt that we're going to move into the amendment
and
process.
that gives us,
Moving forward.
this doesn't necessarily give us the opportunity to have 6 months and or whatever, but the amendment process gives us time
Yes.
to move in that direction. And,
We'll
we're always tongue in cheek about things. Our current
We'll still be
commissioners,
working on this.
as they said, have authority until December the 31st. So we are looking here, I mean, you need to think about that. We were talking June, God, we're talking 7 months. Okay? So, none of us are necessarily wanting to say, what are they going to, we have no idea what they're going to do, but I think we need to protect our interest. And however,
Is there anything, Ryan, that prevents the APC from coming up with an application independent from the ordinance?
You're gonna get into logistics. A development comes in, I'm supposed to have it in front of the technical review committee within 30 days, that sort of stuff. So
That the area-wide zoning ordinance that says that?
that's what the solar ordinance says.
Solar ordinance says that.
Well, the solar ordinance says that. So that needs to
Be
be
fixed.
amended.
adopt the amendment,
Well, the ordinance says any development plan has to go in front of the tech review.
direct our office to take no application.
I don't know.
And if they want to sue,
It's
well,
made up of most of
time. If they say you can't get,
So I would-
that's time to
The office has been directed not to do that.
I know
We get
that.
this application.
I know that. And
You might have to approve.
I'm saying that we need to put it in writing and post it up there so that if Ryan happens to be gone, we've asked him to do that, he may be gone and some of our office staff is there and somebody comes in and drops this thing off. It needs to be posted. It needs to be made public that we are not accepting.
Brian, does the office staff have an understanding that we are not accepting applications at this time or anything associated with solar from solar companies?
There you go.
They have that understanding very
Some
clearly.
have been present for most of the meetings, so.
Okay, well, the only thing that concerns me is the information that got submitted in the packet last month. And I know you didn't have knowledge of that. I don't know where that came from. That source was never identified. Remember the little,
Oh, the binder thing.
the binder thing that got sent to APC? I mean,
It was asked to be put in the packets and printed in.
okay, but that should have been cleared by you or I.
Yeah.
And do we have that?
I agree. Again, right now, you know, kind of our.
I understand.
Do we know who that was?
They talk, they've been up and talked to us.
I don't know if that's that important. What I want to make sure
I
is
want to make
that,
a point there.
but we have an understanding in the office that we're not gonna, that's not gonna take place again, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And if something does come in that legitimately needs to be in our packet, and it's not from membership, we need to know who that person is, and how to contact them in case we have questions. This thing just comes as propaganda, regardless of what side of this issue you're on. They took a very strong point of view and put it into our packet. We have no idea who it was. We can't contact them, say thank you, or contact them and say, we disagree. So please, anytime anybody comes in to add something to our packet, name will accompany, name, telephone number, address
Right.
will accompany in our packet whatever it is that they put there.
Right, and I told staff basically that I would put it in front of you first.
Thank you. Okay. Linda?
Hi, I got some suggestions. And I've been carrying around all these ordinances for a while now. The very first thing is, I think most of us came here to give our input on the application process. So can we just collect a list of what everybody feels is important?
I would love that.
Okay, okay, 'cause we have some, right? And another thing, as a courtesy to our current commissioners, maybe we can find out what was so important in draft 4 that they felt like that should be the one we go with. And see if that makes any difference.
You probably have to ask them in a commissioners meeting and
that's
hope you can get a
fine.
response.
Okay. For me, the list of application questions.
Yes, please.
The biggest thing is, are we going to be able to collect a significant amount of money to make sure that the damages are taken care of, the decommissioning is taken care of? Because right now, we don't have a good idea of what it's going to cost for everything. But I feel like we need to know what will be available.
And those are in the ordinance, correct? Decommissioning?
It's-
Are they
it'll be-
defined?
It'll be, the decommissioning plan would be a full removal, updated every 5 years.
But there's no amount.
That amount would be brought to us, and that is something that would have to be, that amount would be brought to us in the decommissioning plan that whoever the commissioners are would have to sign.
Right.
I mean, it's
But we need
reviewed every
to,
5
that
years.
needs to be in there.
At the time of the development plan submission?
Yeah, this would all be before we'd ever get
Okay.
any green light.
Okay.
Are those,
We will have a performance bond that will take everything back out of the ground and return it to the way it was before they ever started.
Yeah, but who's going to determine how much that will be?
That would be engineering from that company and, well,
I agree.
we wouldn't be that company. We would actually, the money that would come from permitting and application fees would pay a company out there to come in and do our engineering and do our inspecting and do our, so if they come in, permitting right now is $10,000 for the application fee to even give us a development plan. Once that starts, it's $1,000 per megawatt. So if we have 150 watt megawatt farm, that would give us 150,000 to pay some a company where we would have a scoring committee to
On top of the
decide.
10,000.
Right. So I mean, we would have a company that could be there every day that helps us go over the development and the drainage, and would help determine
Before
how
any
much that would
permission
cost.
is given.
Yes,
Ryan,
that's in there.
from my past experience in dealing with some projects, and having sealed bins opened and that sort of thing, it was always part of the process for them to have a bid bond insurance, sometimes $1 million, sometimes, more than that. It's an insurance policy that they have, which I think if we were to require that, would take care of your concerns. So is that built in?
Yes, it's in there.
Do they have to have an insurance policy? And
Yes.
if they do, to what degree? What's that based on?
One 716 item M.
Yeah, it's a bond for, in a form acceptable to Grant County in the sum of $1 million for each contiguous SFES location proposed to be constructed during the project.
So the bid bond would be the same for 50 acres as it would be for 1,000 acres?
That's not enough. No, it's not enough.
The bid bond or the decommissioning plan?
Pardon?
You're talking the decommissioning plan?
I'm just talking about the bond to cover the concerns that she is bringing up. And if it's $1 million for 100 acres, okay, fine, maybe that's adequate. But if the project is 1,000 acres, then maybe What I'm saying is the insurance or the bid bond that is filed should be based upon a per acre basis, whatever it is. And it should be large enough to cover whatever damages that is her concern. I'm just
So these are amendments. These are possible amendments we're talking about. Let's talk about application, because I think we'll have extended discussions about amendments.
But I think that's where we want to be.
Well, we've got these people here, Bob. I'm going to honor any input
That's
they
fine.
have in regard to the application.
I do agree
Want to do it
that
too.
they need to list the investors and all the businesses or whoever is involved in the situation. I think our eyes might be opened by some of that.
Okay.
And I've got more lists whenever y'all feel like it.
No, knock them off. Let's just start knocking them off. And let's not get into solution mode and just listen to the.
Thank you.
Right?
Okay. One other major thing I've been thinking on is a referendum to be on the ballot. Do we have a way to do that? Do we need to do that?
We need to do that, but it's not done in Indiana,
Oh,
unfortunately.
we need to find out how to get the
Get
elected.
the state law changed.
Yeah,
Start
okay,
with your representatives.
okay.
We've seen how it can be done. The commissioners just did it
For $15,000.
for $15,000. They're consulting.
Okay, and then a timeline of their plan, I think should be in there. And is it possible to have them give us a projected tax income?
Well, that's going to go through
Promises.
that would go to the county council for a tax abatement. Otherwise, I'm assuming that it would just be based on assessed value of the improvements of the land. Right? Okay. If it goes into a tax abatement, then it falls back into the economic growth development plan, which I believe is also approved by the commissioners.
No,
No, who?
tax abatement? Goes
Tax
to the
abatement.
county council.
Yeah, but if the tax abatement is given by the council, then we go into economic development plan, which, who has control of that?
Commission. Your economic development plan would be commission.
And economic development is touched in draft or current ordinance,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's voluntary for the solar company to participate.
I
Okay.
think
In the
what we see in
economic
Delaware
development.
County was they offered 10 million in economic development with a 10-year disappearing tax abatement.
Okay.
So that was the sister to Matthews project.
I know we're all over the place, but I think we got an audience maybe to have some discussions about this. Is it my understanding that a solar company holds the option of either requesting a tax abatement before filing an application
That's correct.
I would say that'd be their first step.
to file for, but they wouldn't have to do that. They could roll the dice on a tax abatement and go ahead and file
Sure,
An
they don't have
application
to have
first.
one, but usually
Okay.
that's the first step. Delaware County, that's actually part of their ordinance is that they go to the council first.
They must go to the council first, but ours doesn't say that.
It says it both ways. It's confused. It says before the application, and then in another paragraph, it says later, before the development plan.
Okay.
I think we put it in as basically any tax abatement goes in front of the council.
Okay. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, and I know it's part of this already, but as many people have seen pictures, the buffer zone isn't maintained. They've got a promise in there, but can we require they give a plan for the maintenance of their buffer zone?
That'd be in the ordinance, and that'd be an amendment to the ordinance.
Okay,
We've got that vegetation plan is in
Okay.
there. The review scorecard is also in
yeah, but how long is it good for?
there. The whole,
Huh?
the whole part of the lease.
Oh, the whole time of the lease, they're gonna come in regularly and water plants and
Every book.
replace them and.
Yeah, there's the scorecard that they would have to pass. And this is put out by Purdue University, so most ordinances are using this.
That's for the original plan.
And then they would have a vegetation plan as far as maintenance, how many times they have to
But
go.
that's not part of that.
It's part of our ordinance. They would have to have something like this, a vegetation plan, something like this.
Other application requests?
I think that's enough for right now.
Okay. Anyone else, please?
Hi, how's everyone doing? My name is Bill Creech. I live at 1409 Ironwood in Marion. And some interesting conversations here. I had a couple questions. You talked about the decommissioning plan, bond, or whatever for the solar. Is that, and you made some good points in that, is that adjusted for inflation? It's because 20 years from now, like 20 years ago, a life insurance policy, the $1,000 was a pretty good deal. But, you know, $1 million to dispose of something now, inflated over 20 years, is that going to be significant enough to do, especially with government regulations that might kick in, environmental regulations, all that type of stuff that might come into effect with decommissioning these? I don't know if there's like battery farms for these things or what type of solar thing you're using. And what happens if for some reason there is some contamination into a water source, into a drainage source? What's the liability insurance of that opposed to the cost of rectifying it? And I have some real concerns about that because I've dealt with that in the past where in business you thought that you were good until you weren't. And
It was too late.
yeah, until it's too late. So I guess I have some questions, concerns. In the application process, is that clarified? Is that projected? And is anybody given any kind of thought process to that? Because you're looking, in decommissioning, you're looking 20 years out. Okay, what's 20 years from now hold? So how can you project that and not get a cost back on to the taxpayers, potentially, that? And what keeps the solar company from default, or the bond company from defaulting on that, especially if the subsidies, these solar companies run on a lot of government subsidies. What happens if we have a change in administration and those subsidies get cut? Just like in the state of New York cut subsidies for the solar farms there, and they just walked off. They just stopped building them, the wind and solar in New York, because the solar company assumed that they were going to go ahead and renew the subsidies, even though they were told they were going to subsidize it for 4 years. So what's the guarantee? I think you guys made a good point earlier. I think maybe Ed said that we need to do background on this of the companies and really investigate them and really look at it. And why is the need of all these shell companies for all these solar companies? If you actually go look at their tax filings and look at research them, why is that? And they say, well, we're an American company. Well, then why do you need all the shell companies?
Well, that's a good application question. How many shell companies do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll get the
Taxes.
integrity of the company.
You brought up an interesting point. How solid do we feel the ordinance is, Ryan, in regard to the sale of a solar development to who knows how many different times it may be sold? And how solid is the decommissioning and the other safeguards to carry with each buyer?
We would have a performance bond that, again, that should take it back to existing. Change in ownership is also in here, as far as the responsibility of the owner and operator listed in the application to inform the Area Planning Commission of any changes in its ownership and operation during the life of the project, including the sale or transfer of ownership and or operation.
Okay? So we're,
Yeah, it doesn't say approval. It says just notifying of any sale.
Right, so then you could sell it to someone that,
Yeah.
that has $50 in their savings account.
Yeah.
Because now all these stipulations at the beginning need to be on each one of the purchasers on down the road, right?
so what you're saying is the ordinance should read that it has to be approved before it's sold. Who would give the
I
approval?
think that would protect us somewhat.
Who would honor that approval? Or who would be that approving body?
Yeah, it should be the commissioners.
Should be the commissioners, okay.
That bond question that you're asking about, an easy way to address the inflation is to attach whatever the bond is to the CPI, and that bond would be renewed every 5 years with the differential between what CPI was with current and what it is.
Again, I don't know if that's in there or not,
Yeah, it is. It's in there.
or you could require it and put in an escrow fund that can be invested, so you know you have the money up front from the solar company instead of a bond that they may have bought pennies on the dollar to get the bond company to do that. So if you actually have the money put in escrow, you draw interest off that escrow equal to the rate of inflation. And
That's a creative thought, isn't it?
that's what a lot of, that's how a lot of business.
It doesn't have to be a performance bond. I mean, it actually gives us different, it's a bond to letter of creditor or other securities acceptable to the Area Planning Commission. So it doesn't say it has to be this.
Yeah. And unfortunately, what's in that ordinance is decommissioning, not recycling.
Right.
Big difference in cost.
Yeah, a lot of this issues, if you go out and look in California, because they're 20 years ahead of us on this, they're running into all these issues. A lot of that decommissioning now is floating around on barges out there because they don't know what to do with it, because they can't put it in the ground because of government regulations.
Yeah.
So.
And after a while, you run out of third world countries to dump it in,
Exactly, but,
which is what they do.
I just wanted to bring a couple of those points up, and then final thing that I wanted to say, and I said this at the commissioners meeting, the need for the comprehensive plan keeps coming up. Every one of these issues could be resolved if you had a comprehensive plan that everybody agreed on. And I don't know, I'm just a taxpayer. I come and listen to this, and I go to some of the meetings, and I'm fairly new at this. But there's too many silos. We can't do this, but they can do that, and they can't. Who can just get everybody together, create a comprehensive plan, and say, this is it? 1 minute I hear the APC can't, gives an unfavorable recommendation to the Galdi's project because a lot of people are complaining about it. Okay, and that's probably a good thing coming into the neighborhood, but yet the same people don't pay the same respect to the people that are complaining about the industrial solar farms. And I want to make sure that I'm on record for myself saying, I don't like the fact that hearing everybody refer to the people that don't want solar on, should be protected farmland to be anti-solar, because I am not anti-solar. I've had solar lights, I don't have a problem with people having them in their thing, residential solar and all that, non-protected farmlands. And that's something that needs to be looked at in a comprehensive plan. And if you do allow it, is it 1%, 3% of the land and that's it? But you gotta come up with a plan that says, this is it, this is the areas that we're gonna develop that are for commercial and business. This is gonna be residential, and we can't pick and choose winners and flip a coin, because that seems like that's what's going on. And you should be able to just go right to the comprehensive plan and say, no, that can't be zoned for that. And this is crazy. We keep going back and forth over this stuff. And again, that's just my opinion from an outside observer. And I really hope that you can get all of the decision makers, all the stakeholders together at some point and do what's right for the citizens that voted and put everybody in office. Some people are appointed, I understand that. But educate, the lady said, there's not very many people that know even what's going on with this, you know, and you know, what are the opportunities to educate more and the people, and that's a tough way to go now because so many people. It's too
We're
many
gonna make a
ways.
very strong effort to be transparent. This is an example of that.
Yeah. The trouble is how many people want to participate?
Well, how do you get that up?
That's a good question.
More would participate if they knew what was happening.
Well, maybe. I'd like to think so, like you. I would agree that, I think that would be a good thing. I don't know if it always happens though. And even if they know.
But again, the people out on the street, if they see a sign that says, no solar on farmlands, they think everybody is anti-solar. And I think that's crazy because they don't understand what you're talking about. You're trying to protect farmland. And that there's a big difference. If you went out in farmland and dumped a bunch of chemicals out there, the EPA would be all over you.
Farmers are regulated by the EPA as to how much chemicals they can spray.
And again, that's
You made an interesting point though. No solar on farmland. I mean, a lot of people probably don't realize the extent of the size that these industrial projects want. Thousands of acres. When I first heard about solar farms, I thought, oh, hey, that sounds good. The BZA approved an 18.5 acre solar farm next to the highway department building, just outside of Gas City. A lot of people don't even know it's there. That's what I was thinking. Oh, well, good. You know, but then we find out much later, no, these are huge projects.
Now, the other thing is, if you look at the plot maps, it's all scattered. It looks like somebody just took a shotgun and shot it with it. And if you really had a plan, you would block off an area and decide how big an area you wanted. And that would be your solar place, and you would build around it. You would have the infrastructure there. You would put all the power company would put their stations out there and do everything. And instead of just having this over here, this over here, this over here, this over here, that's not a comprehensive plan. That's a shotgun approach. And
That's turning greed loose in the county.
Huh?
That's just turning greed loose in the county.
Yeah.
Here, I'll pay you 5 times what you normally get for your farmland if you'll sign up this plot for solar.
Plus, you gotta be real, I think the cities have got to be real careful, depending on where those plots are. They may think that's good for them, but it may, economic development, expansion may be locked in because of a solar farm. If it's right on the boundary, so as far as looking at comprehensive plan or where that ordinance goes, how do you keep cities from being landlocked by a solar farm and not be able to grow?
The town of Fairmount has concerns in regard to that, because what if they needed to drill a new well for the water system? You know, they have to protect themselves for that type of need.
And again, if you had a plan, and if you need to work solar in, that's it, and do that. But I think part of the problem with understanding, getting the people out there, it's been coupled, not you, it's been coupled with, we have to have solar because we're gonna get sued for a new jail. And the urgency to get solar done, because every time I've had a number of discussions with all 3 commissioners, but 2 of them, every time I have a conversation with them about solar, the jail comes up in about the 3rd sentence. Well, we have to get the new jail because, and that's probably what hurt them, because the jail and the solar needs to be decoupled. It needs to be looked at separately. And it shouldn't be one depends on the other. And if the thought process is we have to have the solar so we can have new jail so we don't get sued, that's great. But you still got to maintain the new jail, even if you're building another jail. I mean, you're down the road. I mean, you just don't put a new development up just like that. You know, I've opened tons of new stores. And by the time you do all the surveys for them, and the road commission surveys, and the sewage surveys, and the electrical, and the parking, and then you start the construction. And then you got all the phases of the construction permits and everything. You're talking 2 or 3 years. So, at minimum, if you even round it up. So, I hope you,
We share your concerns.
yeah, thank you very much.
Anybody else would like to speak? I don't want this to be.
I want to say something funny though.
Oh, funny, okay.
You'll enjoy
You
it.
guys get ready, it's gonna be funny.
So I just saw yesterday that Huntington County,
Yes.
did you see it? Yes. Has received new benches from the Apex Company. And they're made from recycled propellers from the windmills. And on top of that, they got to pay for them.
Huntington got the paper.
Yeah, isn't that great?
It's a great gift.
But anyway, and I wanted to add what kind of repercussions, I want you guys to think about what kind of repercussions if the things they promised aren't followed.
Sure. Come on up.
I was here on the day that they passed draft, supposed to pass draft 7, which happened to be the first day that Steve Wright was here. He spent a half an hour telling us how he didn't know what was going on in the county yet. We all sat here and listened to him. He didn't know, he wanted to find out what was going on. But when it's his turn, he sat right over there, and he looked over at Mr. Burley, and he said, we are sending back draft 4, right? But he's the one that gave us 4. Maybe we should ask him what's in there that is so important. And maybe we should look at their, I can't think of the word.
Motivation.
What?
Motivation.
No, that's part of it. They call it your investments, and stuff, your portfolios.
No.
Maybe we should look at some portfolios. And about a mile and a half from my house, they're trying to buy land to put their battery storage facility. They're gonna have batteries. When they leak, when they catch fire, what are we gonna do? Thank you.
Application thoughts, if we can do that.
Hello, Brian Howell. I live in 2909 South Branson Street, Marion, Indiana. This will be real quick. I'm not going to take up too much time at all. It's just, I just want to say, you know, if we simplify from the seat of government to the public what's going on with ordinances and amendments, that'll get more people involved. And, you know, in the land of the blind, you know, you can do anything you want. So trim, cut, trim the fat, if that's it already done or even possible. But that's always a good thing, to limit government as much as possible, make it simple for the public to understand. And like say, are you going to raise taxes? Are you going to cut taxes? I mean, the public needs to know that kind of stuff, and ordinances and amendments, or what are they going to do? And I just thought that was important to put that in there, because when you see like the roads and stuff, the interstates and all that, where all the money comes from, no one knows. And I think that's kind of, I don't know if it's intentional, because they don't want you to know, the public, they don't want the public to know everything that's going on with all the money going here and there. But it's just something to keep an eye on. So hopefully that helps. There. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? We're going to try and wrap this up in about 13 minutes. Roy, anything to share?
I do. I want to go back to the farm ground. No solar on farm ground. I said this at the commissioners meeting. I want you people to hear these numbers. Right now, the Conservation Reserve, the United States government pays farmers to not produce on 24 million acres. It costs you money to subsidize their rent payments. And that's all agricultural land. It's not desert, it's agricultural land, 24 million acres. If we put solar on to provide all the power that we use in the United States, it would take 20,000 square acres. Or square miles, 20,000 square miles, I'm sorry, I knew it'd mess us up because I don't have it in front of me. 20,000 square miles, that's about 12 million acres. For all the power in the United States, that's half of what you're paying for to not produce crops on for at least the last 60 years. Because there's been a what was it called before the conservation reserve? The set-aside program. There was a set-aside program. So the conservation reserve, so the farm ground, I'm tired of paying for people to not produce. This would be an excellent placeholder for 30 to 40 years to lock that land in, stop paying for producers to not produce, and generate our electricity. There again, if we did just half of it, we could produce enough electricity for all the power in the United States. Elon Musk
thinks that, that's not true.
No, I was just gonna ask for the reference.
I wish I could remember, I had it on another sheet of paper. But Elon Musk thinks that number would be half as we increase the efficiency of solar panels. So look up Elon Musk and 10,000 acres, or 10,000 square miles, I'm sorry.
20.
Elon
20,000.
thinks it's 10.
Yeah, but we need a
regardless.
technology jump, but that's.
Yeah, right,
okay,
but
we're good.
that would be a good way to find out, I'm just giving you that to be able to find the article. So, but the fact remains that today, and I don't remember where I got this fact either, but if all the solar projects that are currently on the books in the United States moved forward, it would be 0.16% of the available farm ground. Now, that's not everything, that's not all the power grid or anything, that's just the current projects that are on the board today. 0.16. I think I got that from GreenX, they had a reference somewhere, I'm not sure where the reference was on that. But, so don't quote me on that one might not be, it's been a while, but it was less than 1%.
Roy, question. You referenced 24 million acres of CRP.
Right.
That's a crop reserve program.
Yeah, Conservation Reserve Program, yes.
Do you know what criteria that land falls into in order to qualify for CRP?
It had to be agricultural producing land.
It's the most unproductive soil.
Absolutely.
What they're trying to do is preserve the soil rather than farm ground that shouldn't be farmed. And we're talking about the difference between not as productive farm ground versus prime farmland.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because prime farm ground will not qualify for
Probably
CRP.
less than 50% as efficient. So yeah, we might have to bring more. We'd probably save more than half of the cost by bringing that ground down back into production.
Well, I think the point I'm trying to make here is that ground has to meet certain criteria
absolutely.
before it can
It's not
fall
the most
into the
productive, and
CRP
it's,
program.
you know,
Right.
buffer strips and everything else.
Correct.
But it was agricultural land. It had to be producing crops to be put into that conservation reserve. So, and keep in mind that the 12 million acres that we need, that's across the entire United States. That's not just our 20 states that has farm ground. That includes, you know, New Mexico, Arizona, California, all the places that have the desert and everything. So it's less than that. So half of the conservation reserve, and we can produce all the electricity in the United States. So,
Roy, is there anything you'd like to see added to an application as a landowner?
no, I think the financial stability of the company, if we could find a way to research it, would be an excellent idea. That was a really good one. And
Any others?
the one that the young lady had was a good one too, with the timeline. That's what I'm like. The timeline of the project.
Oh, okay, for
So the
completion,
county
start to
knew,
finish?
Yeah, how long it was gonna be in construction or once it went into full operation. So yeah, the timeline I thought was a good idea too.
Yeah, so some of the horror stories that are out there is the fact that in the event that the solar projects begins and for whatever reason there's delay of receiving the solar panels, the landowner does not receive any payments until that
Once
project
it
is
goes into
complete.
construction, once they define construction, if they roll one bulldozer in there, the payments start on the property at half for full productivity rate.
Okay,
So once construction starts,
Depends on the lease.
once
Depends on the
construction
lease.
starts,
okay.
they get.
But that's the lease that you've got, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's the stand, that was
I was
the,
just, when he was talking about CRP money, I actually talked to the USDA at the time, and this is July 2022. Green County had 1,290 acres of CRP.
1,290 acres, and when was this?
That was 7/22/2022. I talked to the head of USDA. I can't think he was the state guy, he just happened to be in the office that day. So it was like perfect timing.
Okay. Now, would that also be classified forest? Because I don't know where there's 1,200 acres of CRP in Grant County anymore.
That's according to USDA as of 7/22/2022. Your agricultural books called for for 112 acres of brownfields or other 112 acres of woodland areas, 1,290 acres.
So it would include classified forests and so on?
No, that's not what he just said.
Oh, okay.
Separates it out.
Oh, okay.
It has to be in agricultural production to be in the CRP, so would not include the forest.
Okay.
His numbers verified them.
Okay. Anything else?
Please, any other questions? I've been involved with this for, 4 years, working with the solar companies.
Why do the solar companies need tax abatements if they're gonna bring so
They have
much?
never mentioned that. Has anybody heard them ask for it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They asked for abatement?
Delaware, over in Delaware.
Delaware,
Did they
Madison
grant it?
County.
Yes.
So the county ground.
It's easier to sell when there's a tax abatement attached to it.
That's
Should there be an escrow account up front to commission solar areas?
There is.
Not just
In the
bond,
ordinance. It's in the ordinance, and it has to be reviewed every 5 years. Through the solar company, they have to get a new contractor to give them an estimate of the cost to decommission it every 5 years, and then that bond is reissued every 5 years. Reaching on an
What
estimate.
happens to people that have bought their land, have their house there, and they're gonna be on, have solar on 3 sides of them? What's gonna happen to the price of their land?
It'd be a
That's what
pretty,
you
it'd be a
in a
pretty
small-
damn good neighbor to me.
In a small community, you
my.
should think about.
Rather than the parking lot.
All right, all right. Hey,
So anyway.
you guys are welcome to have these discussions in the parking lot. But we're gonna hold some order here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Jane Thornburg. I live at the corner of 26 and Wheeling Pike.
You're a good neighbor,
I've
Jane.
never spoken before.
We want to hear from you.
I have nothing against the solar, but I have it against residential areas. I've lived there for 50 years. I put every dime I've got in that place, and now it's gonna be worth nothing because I will have solar on 2 sides of my house, the way that field is set. So where do we get some relief from this or some protection?
Well, we're going to do our best through the amendment process to give you a little more distance.
It shouldn't be on 2 sides of anybody's house, not mine or anybody else's. We may have to put up with it, but it should be at a distance. And the ditches. Okay, who do we come to if all at once everything starts to flood?
Yeah.
Do we come to you? Do we come to the commissioners? Who's gonna take care of it? Anybody?
Commissioners loan.
That's true.
Well, it's going to be important that in the drainage plan that will be submitted by the solar company, that we, as the APC, will have to approve, correct?
But it'll start with the drainage.
It'll be part of the development plan, and we have to approve that before anything can move forward as the APC. But, the drainage board, I want to give them credit. They're really on top of, they are probably one of the more concerned entities of a solar development. They have a part of it, and, they're very concerned about protecting things of that nature.
Well, I've got a barn that's 40 feet from my property line, the edge of the barn. So 50 feet is too close. Surely there can be some kind of setback so we're not just completely covered up with this stuff. Over there by Gilman's, you're not by any houses. It doesn't bother anybody. So I'm not against it, but does it have to be where there's property owners that have lived there for 50 years? I'm almost 80 years old. What am I supposed to do? Go out and get a job and start over? There's a lot of us in that position.
Yeah.
That's all I've got to say. Just protect the homeowners.
Thank you. All right, we are going to wrap this up. Michael? Short.
Last one. Well, I've got a list here. I'll try to be
Now, is this application related?
What, Ed, I'm sorry.
Is this application?
Application related.
Okay.
Ed's list of corporate organization, relationships and so forth. He had good ideas. I would think in terms of other things, requiring a disclosure of the development company's financing arrangements for their construction, i.e. are they coming in with cash as examples, not totally, not comprehensive, but a couple ideas. Are they coming in with cash in pocket? They're financing it with hard assets, or are they mortgaging themselves to bring in their finance, provide for financing? If they're sitting inside of a shell corporation or a limited liability corporation, are they structured where they are not carrying any assets and only liabilities? If they are only with liabilities, that's risky. They're trying to, that's an indication of flag, they're trying to disown them or distance themselves from hard ownership issues and liability.
And to be honest, Michael, those are the questions that I really think that this committee wanted to address with some of those security questions, that we as the county need to look at. And what I'm going to ask everyone here, please email me as you think about things that would concern you about a company of this nature coming to our county that we would place on an application. Email me those and I will collect and organize those.
Fair enough.
Okay? You have others? I'm taking notes.
Long-term plan, the developer's long-term plan for ownership of the development, i.e. what is their horizon for continued ownership of the development once it has been completed and is online? Are they going to be looking and trying to sell it to the local utility company on the next day after they brought everything online or not? Are they going to hold it for another 10 years themselves to make revenue off of it? A disclosure of their contamination mitigation processes. Maybe that's contained within one of the plans that's already required in the ordinance. Maybe it's not. I do not know. But I'm thinking in terms of, Joan mentioned batteries. As it's evident in a couple other counties, Delaware County being one, there are plans on part of some developers to build battery storage facilities to collect the energy that from the panel farms when it's not able to supply all or input all of the output.
Holds it when the grid needs it so it can put it on the grid.
Itself, right?
Yes.
So that in Delaware County, they set a 5,000 acre limit on the size of the total development of solar farms because they had a study that said the grid could only accept output up to 5,000 acres of size. Anything more, it couldn't go into the grid, so they'd have to store it. I don't know if the ordinance deals with battery facilities or not, but that's another side issue. But potential for contamination.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if there's a rupturing of the equipment in a battery facility, that's going to lead to contamination. The panels themselves, if they are damaged or if they degrade and cause contamination to the surrounding soil, the leaching that happens, and the effect it has on the watershed, on the water table.
Is that EPA controlled, I wonder, because chemical companies, agricultural chemical companies, they have to build concrete barriers to hold their fuel and any chemicals in the event that there would be a spill. So is there anything in the ordinance that's going to require that?
I mean, when we look at the EPA off of their website basically says that although contaminants are a concern, they're not yet found. what it says off the EPA website.
But there isn't anything to say in our ordinance that we can't require that kind of containment.
We need to study it. I wrote it down. I've been through 57 ordinances. I don't know that any of them address batteries.
Construction.
And that'd be an amendment thing, wouldn't it?
Another aspect to that contamination issue is what do they plan to do, what does the developer plan to do to set up testing of the land under the panels or under the battery facilities, how frequently and to what degree they would try to
Groundwater
measure
testing.
negative effect on the groundwater.
Pre-test.
Just like the CAPOs are supposed to do groundwater testing around their, same kind of idea. A disclosure of any potential conflicts of interest that the developer may have with business entities or officials within the local community. And sources, a disclosure of where the developer plans to source their materials from, i.e. are they American-owned, American-based companies, or are they foreign companies? And I don't mean just China, but all foreign companies. Thank you.
Email me that list. It's a wonderful list, Michael. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Anyone else? Yes, Todd.
Kind of my list, or that was included, and I'll write the whole thing down and send it to you. But where I'm coming from is they want to call it a solar farm, okay? Why don't we give it the same stringency that we do CAFOs, okay? Look at a CAFO application. They have monitoring wells that have to go in. We don't know what these things are going to do. This is one large experiment, okay? When I contacted the solar companies and asked them for very specific things, like what's the catalog number, what's the number, or exactly what kind of solar panels are you going to put in? And they can't tell me because they're too new. It's all too new. And then I asked for, well, you're going to put these out for 30 years. How do you know they're going to be out there? Give me a study on these particular products. You know, real live 30-year stability studies. And does that have effects of the ground and the water? And I get nothing, okay? So you can't have it both ways. You can't have this product that you have 30 years of safety data on, and it's too new, and we can't tell you what the product number is. Those two things can't happen at the same time. So, you know, there's just a lot of things that absolutely don't make sense, and we should at least give these solar panels applications and ordinances the same stringency that we do livestock. We've been doing that as mankind for thousands of years, and we've got these onerous limitations on being able to raise livestock. This is just all brand new. We don't know what we're getting into from a science standpoint. I mean, I've just asked them, what's the components and the percentages of the components? I mean, I could do the math to see, is there such a small amount that it's not a danger? Or is there such an amount that if they all were destroyed, that would still not be a danger? They won't give you the information. That's where I want to come from the questions that I'd like to pose.
All right, thank everyone for coming. Please, my email is on the website, the APC website. Ryan?
I don't think so.
Probably not.
I don't think we don't generally give that out. We usually, if they contact us, we contact you to contact them. You want it on there?
Put it on there. So my email address will be available on the APC website. Thank you all for coming. CAFO's got a quarter mile. I know, we tried that. Just kind of there, and we may end up referencing this back at some point.
Keep it together.
You got time?
Are we off? Ryan, will you turn us off?